Welcome back, dear listener. I'm so grateful you're still here with us. If you're lying down now, I hope you're comfortable. I hope your body feels heavy and relaxed. I hope your mind is soft and quiet. Take a deep breath in, feel your chest rise. Breathe out slowly, feel your shoulders drop. There's nowhere to be, nothing to do. Just this moment, just these words, just the gentle turning of the seasons. Tonight, we return to Willowbrook. We step into autumn. We watch the leaves change color. We feel the air grow crisp. We follow Emma as she learns to let go, as she learns to harvest, as she learns to prepare, as she learns that strength is not about holding on tight, but about trusting the flow. So relax. Let your eyes close if they want to. Let the words carry you. Let the story hold you. And let's begin. Summer faded slowly, gently, like a song ending on a soft note. The days grew shorter. The light turned golden, then amber, then soft and pale. The mornings came with a crispness that made Emma pull her cardigan tighter. The evenings arrived earlier, bringing cool air and the scent of wood smoke from chimneys. The garden began to change. The green softened. The yellow appeared. The red blushed. The brown settled in. Autumn had arrived in Willowbrook. Emma noticed it first in the light. The morning sun no longer poured through her bedroom window with summer's intensity. It came at an angle now. It stretched across the floor in long, thin beams. It caught the dust motes dancing in the air. It made the cottage feel warmer, cozier, more intimate. The light of autumn was different. It wasn't bright and demanding. It was soft and forgiving. It invited rest. It invited reflection. It invited slowing down. She noticed it in the garden, too. The vegetables had finished their main harvest. The tomatoes had ripened. The lettuce had bolted. The beans had dried on their vines. The herbs had flowered and seeded. The garden was tired. Not in a sad way, but in a satisfied way, like someone who had worked hard and was ready to rest. Emma stood at the back door one morning, holding a mug of tea, watching the mist rise from the grass. The air smelled of damp earth and decaying leaves. It smelled of change. It smelled of endings and beginnings wrapped together. She took a sip of tea. It was warm. It was comforting. It was exactly what she needed. She had been in Willowbrook for 4 months now. 4 months of waking up to birdsong. 4 months of working in the garden. 4 months of learning. 4 months of growing. She felt different. Not completely transformed. Not perfect. But different. Her hands were rougher. Her shoulders were stronger. Her mind was quieter. Her heart was lighter. She moved slower. She breathed deeper. She noticed more. She worried less. Autumn was teaching her something new, something summer hadn't taught her. Summer was about growth, about expansion, about reaching toward the sun. Autumn was about release, about letting go, about gathering what was ready and leaving the rest to the earth. Emma walked into the garden. The grass was damp. Her shoes left prints in the soft ground. She walked to the vegetable patch. The plants looked tired. Their leaves were yellowing, their stems were drooping, but there was still work to do. There was still food to harvest. There was still preparation to be done. She began with the tomatoes. The last ones were still green but firm. They would ripen slowly on the kitchen windowsill. She picked them carefully. She placed them in a basket lined with soft cloth. She didn't rush. She didn't try to get it all done at once. She just picked what was ready. She left the rest for another day. Next, she moved to the herbs. The basil was finished. The first frost would kill it soon. She cut the last leaves. She would dry them. She would use them in winter soups. The rosemary was still strong. It would survive the winter. It would keep growing, slowly, steadily, through the cold months. She touched the needles gently. They smelled sharp and clean. They smelled like resilience. She walked to the apple trees. The ground beneath them was littered with fallen fruit. Some were bruised, some were rotten, some were still good. She picked up the good ones. She would make applesauce, she would bake pies, She would share them with neighbors. She would store some in the cool cellar for winter. As she worked, she thought about letting go. The garden was letting go. The trees were letting go of their leaves. The plants were letting go of their fruits. The earth was letting go of its warmth. Everything was releasing. Everything was preparing for rest. Emma found it harder than she expected. She wanted to keep things as they were. She wanted to hold on to summer. She wanted to keep the garden green and full. She wanted to freeze time. But she couldn't. Time moved forward. Seasons changed. Life cycled. And she had to learn to move with it. She sat on the stone bench beside the pond. The water was still. A few leaves floated on the surface. The reflection of the sky was clear and pale. She watched a single leaf drift slowly across the water. It didn't fight the current. It didn't try to go back. It just moved. It just floated. It just trusted the flow. Emma took a deep breath. She let it out slowly. She whispered to herself, "Let go." The words felt strange in her mouth, unfamiliar, uncomfortable, but also necessary, also true, also freeing. She stood up. She went back to work. But her approach had shifted. She wasn't trying to save everything. She wasn't trying to control everything. She was just harvesting what was ready. She was just preparing what she could. She was just doing what was needed. And she was letting the rest go. Over the next few weeks, Emma learned the rhythm of autumn. It was slower than summer, quieter, more deliberate. The work was different. Not planting, not watering, not nurturing growth, but gathering, but preserving, but preparing. She spent mornings in the garden. She harvested the last of the vegetables, the carrots, the beets, the potatoes, the squash. She cleaned them carefully. She stored them in the cellar. She made sure they were dry. She made sure they were cool. She made sure they would last through the winter. She spent afternoons in the kitchen. She cooked. She preserved. She canned. She dried. She made soups. She made stews. She made jams. She made chutneys. She filled the shelves with jars. She filled the freezer with bags. She filled the cellar with baskets. She was preparing, not out of fear, not out of anxiety, but out of care, out of wisdom, out of respect for the seasons. Doris visited often. She brought recipes. She brought techniques. She brought stories of autumns past. My mother used to say, Doris told her one afternoon as they peeled apples together, that autumn is when the earth takes a deep breath. It's been working all summer, growing, producing, giving. Now it needs to rest, and we need to help it rest. We gather what we can, we leave the rest, we thank the earth, and we let it sleep. Emma nodded. The words made sense. They felt true. They felt ancient. They felt like wisdom passed down through generations, through mothers and daughters, through gardeners and growers, through people who understood the cycles, who respected the rhythms, who trusted the process. How do you know when to stop? Emma asked. When to stop harvesting? When to stop preparing? When to just let it be? Doris smiled. She placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. You'll know. The garden will tell you. The light will tell you. Your body will tell you when the work starts to feel heavy instead of light. When the days start to feel short instead of long. When you start to crave rest instead of activity. That's when you stop. That's when you let go. That's when you trust that you've done enough. Emma thought about that. She carried it with her as she worked. She listened for the signs. She paid attention to her body. She noticed when her shoulders tensed. She noticed when her breathing became shallow. She noticed when the work stopped feeling like joy and started feeling like obligation. And when she noticed those things, she stopped. She put down her tools. She went inside. She made tea. She sat by the window. She watched the light change. She did nothing. And she didn't feel guilty. She felt wise. She felt in tune. She felt like she was learning. The leaves began to fall in earnest. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. They drifted from the trees in slow spirals. They landed on the grass. They landed on the paths. They landed on the roof. They made a carpet of color. Gold, orange, red, brown, yellow, every shade, every tone, every variation. Emma raked them slowly. not to clear them away, but to gather them. She would compost them. She would return them to the earth. She would let them feed the soil for next year's growth. It was a cycle, a circle, an ending that was also a beginning. As she raked, she thought about her own life, about what she needed to let go of, about what she needed to release. She had come to Willowbrook carrying so much: stress, anxiety, expectations, perfectionism, the need to prove herself, the need to be productive, the need to be in control. Some of it had fallen away already, like leaves in the wind. Some of it was still clinging, like stubborn leaves, refusing to let go. But she knew it would fall. Eventually, naturally, when the time was right, when she was ready, when she trusted enough. She piled the leaves in the corner of the garden. She would turn them into compost over the winter. By spring, they would be dark and rich. They would feed the new plants. They would support new growth. They would be transformed, just like she was being transformed. Then came the storm. Emma had been in Willowbrook for 5 months. She had experienced rain. She had experienced wind. She had experienced cold mornings and damp evenings. But she hadn't experienced a real storm. Not yet. It started on a Tuesday evening. The sky turned an unusual color. Not gray, not blue, but a strange mix of both. Purple, green, yellow. The light was eerie. It made the village look unfamiliar. It made the cottage look old. It made the garden look wild. Emma stood at the window, watching. She felt a flutter in her chest. Not fear. Not exactly. But something close to it. Something like uncertainty. Something like vulnerability. The wind began to pick up. It whistled through the trees. It rattled the windows. It pushed against the door. It moved with purpose, with power, with intention. Emma went through the cottage, checking everything. She closed the shutters. She secured the doors. She brought in the potted plants from the patio. She tied down the garden furniture. She checked the roof for loose tiles. She prepared, not out of panic, but out of respect. She remembered Doris's words. You can't control the storm, but you can prepare for it, and you can trust that you'll survive it. Emma lit candles. She filled a kettle with water. She gathered blankets. She made a small nest on the sofa. She prepared to wait, to ride it out, to trust the process. The storm hit just after midnight. Emma was awake. She was sitting on the sofa, wrapped in blankets, holding a mug of tea. The wind was howling now. Not whistling, not rattling, but howling, like an animal, like something wild and free and powerful. The rain came in sheets. It hammered against the roof. It poured down the windows. It flooded the paths. It turned the garden into a river. Emma heard things breaking, branches snapping, tiles falling, fences collapsing. The storm was taking what it wanted, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She felt helpless. She felt small. She felt vulnerable. She wanted to go outside. She wanted to protect the garden. She wanted to save the plants. She wanted to control the situation. But she couldn't. So she sat. She breathed. She waited. She trusted. She thought about the cycles, about growth and release, about strength and surrender, about control and trust. The storm was part of the cycle. It cleared away the old. It made space for the new. It tested the strong. It washed away the weak. It was necessary. It was natural. It was part of life. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat on the sofa. She listened to the wind. She watched the candles flicker. She felt the house shake. She felt the earth tremble. She felt alive. Not comfortable, not safe, but alive, present, aware, connected to something larger than herself. The storm lasted until dawn. When the sun finally rose, the wind had died down. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear, blue, bright, fresh. Emma opened the door and stepped outside. The garden was transformed. Branches lay scattered across the grass. Leaves were everywhere. The stone wall had a section missing. The greenhouse had a broken pane. The apple tree had lost several large limbs. The vegetable patch was flooded. The flowers were battered. The garden looked wounded. Emma felt a lump in her throat. She had worked so hard, she had cared so much. She had invested so much time and energy. And in one night, the storm had taken so much of it away. She wanted to cry. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to fight. She wanted to fix it all immediately. But she didn't. She stood still. She breathed. She observed. She accepted. Then she walked through the garden slowly, carefully. She assessed the damage. Not with panic, not with despair, but with clarity, with calm, with perspective. The apple tree was damaged, but not destroyed. It would recover. It would grow back. It would be stronger. The stone wall had collapsed, but the foundation was still good. It could be rebuilt. It would be rebuilt. The greenhouse had a broken pane, but the structure was intact. It could be repaired. It would be repaired. The vegetables were flooded, but the soil was rich. It would drain. It would recover. It would feed next year's plants. The garden was wounded, but it was not dead. It was resting. It was clearing. It was preparing for renewal. Just like Emma. Over the next few days, the village came together. Tom arrived with tools. He helped Emma clear the branches. He helped her assess the damage. He helped her plan the repairs. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He just worked. Steadily, calmly, confidently. "It's just a storm," he said, lifting a heavy branch. "It happens. Every few years. The garden will recover. You'll recover. It's all part of the cycle." Doris brought soup. She brought tea. She brought quiet company. She sat with Emma on the patio. They watched Tom work. They drank tea. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The presence was enough. The support was enough. The understanding was enough. "The storm clears away what's weak," Doris said finally. "It makes space for what's strong. It's harsh, but it's necessary. The garden needs it. You need it. We all need it sometimes." Emma nodded. She understood. Not intellectually, but deeply. In her bones. In her heart. In her soul. The storm had taken things from her. But it had also given her something. It had given her perspective. It had given her humility. It had given her trust. It had shown her that she couldn't control everything. That she didn't need to control everything, that she could survive without control, that she could be okay with uncertainty, that she could trust the cycles, that she could trust herself. Jim came by with a bottle of whiskey. "For the evening," he said with a wink. "You've earned it." Mr. Thompson brought fresh bread. "On the house," he said. "Everyone's pitching in." Sarah, the schoolteacher, brought flowers from her garden. "To remind you that beauty returns," she said softly. One by one, the villagers came. Not with grand gestures, not with dramatic speeches, but with small acts of care, with quiet support, with steady presence. They brought food, they brought tools, they brought hands, they brought hearts, they brought community. Emma accepted it all, not with pride, not with independence, but with gratitude, with humility, with openness. She let them help. She let them care. She let them hold her up when she felt weak. She let them remind her that she wasn't alone, that she was part of something larger, that she belonged. The repairs took weeks. Not days. Not quickly. But slowly, steadily, patiently. Emma and Tom rebuilt the stone wall. Stone by stone. Mortar by mortar. Day by day. It was hard work, heavy work, tiring work, but it was also meditative, calming, grounding. Each stone had a place. Each stone had a purpose. Each stone contributed to the whole. Emma learned to be patient. She learned to accept that some things take time, that some things can't be rushed. That some things need to be done slowly, carefully, with respect. She replanted the vegetable patch. She cleared the flooded soil. She added compost. She added nutrients. She added care. She planted winter vegetables, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, hardy plants, strong plants. Plants that could survive the cold. Plants that would feed her through the winter. She repaired the greenhouse. She replaced the broken pane. She cleaned the glass. She organized the shelves. She prepared it for spring seedlings, for new beginnings, for future growth. She pruned the apple tree. She cut away the damaged branches. She shaped the tree. She helped it heal. She helped it prepare for next year's fruit. She trusted that it would grow back, that it would be stronger, that it would produce more. And through it all, she learned. She learned about resilience. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind that shows up every day. The kind that does the work. The kind that trusts the process. The kind that knows that healing takes time, that growth takes time, that life takes time. She learned about strength. Not the kind that controls. Not the kind that dominates. Not the kind that fights. But the kind that bends. The kind that adapts. The kind that surrenders. The kind that trusts. The kind that knows that true strength is not about never falling. It's about always getting back up. She learned about cycles, about growth and release, about strength and surrender, about control and trust, about endings and beginnings, about death and rebirth, about the eternal rhythm of life. And she learned about herself, about her capacity to survive, about her ability to adapt, about her strength, about her resilience, about her trust, about her faith, about her belonging. One evening, several weeks after the storm, Emma sat on the front step. The garden was quiet. The repairs were mostly done. The wounds were healing. The cycles were continuing. The sky was clear. The stars were visible. The air was crisp. The world was still. Emma held a mug of tea. She wrapped herself in a blanket. She watched the light fade. She listened to the silence. She felt the peace. She thought about the storm, about the damage, about the loss, about the fear, about the helplessness, about the vulnerability. And she thought about what came after, about the community, about the support, about the healing, about the growth, about the strength, about the trust. The storm had taken things from her. But it had also given her things. It had given her perspective. It had given her humility. It had given her trust. It had given her community. It had given her strength. It had given her peace. She realized then that the storm wasn't an interruption. It was part of the journey. It was part of the growth. It was part of the cycle. It was necessary. It was natural. It was good. Not in the moment. Not in the pain. Not in the fear. But in the aftermath. In the healing. In the growth. In the transformation. Emma took a sip of tea. It was warm. It was comforting. It was exactly what she needed. She whispered to the night, "Thank you. Not for the storm, not for the pain, not for the loss, but for the lesson, for the growth, for the trust, for the peace, for the belonging, for the cycle, for the life." She finished her tea. She went inside. She locked the door. She turned off the lights. She climbed the stairs. She slipped under the blankets. She closed her eyes. And as she drifted off to sleep, she knew that winter was coming. That it would be cold. That it would be dark. That it would be quiet. That it would be still. But she wasn't afraid. She trusted the cycle. She trusted the seasons. She trusted the garden. She trusted the village. She trusted herself. She was ready. Welcome back, dear listener. I'm so glad you're still here with us. If you're lying down now, I hope you're comfortable. I hope your body feels heavy and relaxed. I hope your mind is soft and quiet. Take a slow breath in. Feel your chest rise. Breathe out gently. Feel your shoulders drop. There's nowhere to be. Nothing to fix. Nothing to rush. Just this moment. Just these words. Just the quiet turning of the year. Tonight, we return to Willowbrook. We step into winter. We watch the frost form on the windows. We listen to the snow fall. We follow Emma as she learns to slow down, as she learns to rest, as she learns that peace is not empty. It is full of presence, full of stillness, full of quiet joy. So relax. Let your eyes close if they want to. Let the words carry you. Let the story hold you. And let's begin. Winter arrived in Willowbrook, not with a shout, but with a whisper. The first frost came on a Tuesday morning. Emma woke up and saw it on the grass. Tiny white crystals, delicate, sharp, glittering in the pale morning light. She pulled back the curtain and watched her breath fog the glass. The air outside was still. The trees were bare. The garden was asleep. The world had changed color. Green had turned to brown. Gold had turned to gray. Blue had turned to white. She made her coffee slowly. She didn't rush. She ground the beans by hand. She boiled the water in a small pot. She poured it over the grounds. She waited. She watched the steam rise. She listened to the quiet house. No traffic, no sirens, no phones ringing. Just the crackle of the wood stove. Just the tick of the clock. Just the soft sound of her own breathing. She took her mug to the window. She sat on the wooden bench she had built with Tom's help. She wrapped her cardigan around her shoulders. She watched the village wake up. Smoke rose from chimneys. Lights turned on in windows. Footsteps crunched on frozen paths. A dog barked softly. A door closed. A bicycle bell rang in the distance. Everything moved slower. Everything felt heavier. Everything felt calm. Winter in Willowbrook was different from winter in London. In London, winter was cold and wet and gray. People hurried. They kept their heads down. They wore dark coats. They avoided eye contact. They rushed from door to door, from train to office, from work to home. Winter was something to survive, something to endure, something to wait out. But here, winter was different. Here, winter was invited. Here, winter was respected. Here, winter was a season of rest, of gathering, of quiet, of warmth. People didn't fight it. They welcomed it. They lit fires. They baked bread. They shared soup. They told stories. They sat together. They let the world slow down. And they slowed down with it. Emma felt the shift in her own body. Her London habits were still there, whispering in her ear, "You should be working. You should be planning. You should be doing something. Rest is lazy. Stillness is wasted time." She heard those voices. She recognized them. But she didn't obey them anymore. She let them pass, like clouds in the sky, like leaves on the wind, like snow melting in the sun. She had learned something important. Something Doris had taught her. Winter isn't for growing. Winter is for resting. The earth sleeps. The trees sleep. The seeds sleep. So should we. Rest isn't lazy. Rest is necessary. Without rest, there is no growth. Without stillness, there is no strength. Emma repeated those words in her mind. She let them settle. She stopped fighting them. She stopped resisting them. She began to practice them. Her days changed. They became shorter. They became quieter. They became simpler. She woke up when the light came. She didn't set an alarm. She didn't check her phone. She didn't rush out of bed. She lay still for a while. She listened to the house. She felt the warmth of the blankets. She watched the light move across the ceiling. She breathed slowly. In, out, steady, calm, natural. Then she got up. She made tea. She sat by the window. She watched the world. She didn't try to fill the time. She didn't try to be productive. She just watched. She noticed things she had never noticed before, the way frost formed patterns on the glass, like flowers, like feathers, like maps of unknown lands. The way snow fell, not fast, not loud, but slow, soft, quiet, each flake unique, each flake gentle, each flake landing without sound, The way the light changed. Pale in the morning, gold at noon, blue in the afternoon, dark by 4 o'clock. The days were short, but they were enough. She read books. Not fast, not to finish, but to enjoy. She read slowly. She tasted the words. She imagined the scenes. She let the stories wash over her. She didn't take notes. She didn't analyze. She just read. And when she finished a book, she didn't immediately start another. She sat. She thought. She let the story settle. She let it become part of her. She wrote in her journal. Not every day. Not long entries. Just a few lines. Just what she noticed. Just what she felt. Just what was true. The fire cracked softly. The snow covered the path. Doris brought soup. I felt calm. I am learning to rest. Simple words. True words. Enough words. She cooked simple meals. Stews, soups, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. She didn't follow recipes exactly. She cooked by feel, by smell, by memory. She chopped slowly. She stirred patiently. She tasted carefully. She ate without distraction. No phone, no book, no TV. Just food, just warmth, just presence. She chewed slowly. She noticed the flavors. She noticed the textures. She noticed how the warmth spread through her chest, how the food grounded her, how the meal became a meditation. She walked to the village shop. Not to rush, not to hurry, but to move, to breathe, to feel the cold air, to hear the crunch of snow under her boots, to see the footprints of others, to know she was not alone. Mr. Thompson always had the door open, always had a smile, always had a warm word. "Morning, Emma. Cold one today. Come in. Get warm." She bought bread, milk, apples, sometimes a small treat, a chocolate bar, a bag of biscuits, something simple, something kind. She paid. She thanked him. She walked home. Slowly, carefully, present. She didn't feel bored. She didn't feel restless. She didn't feel the need to fill the silence. The silence was not empty. It was full, full of sounds she had never noticed, full of moments she had never seen, full of peace she had never known. Doris visited often. She brought tea. She brought company. She brought quiet wisdom. One afternoon, she arrived with a basket of wool and a pair of wooden knitting needles. She sat on the sofa. She began to knit. Slowly, steadily, rhythmically. Loop, pull, loop, pull. The sound was soft, like breathing, like waves, like a heartbeat. "Would you like to learn?" Doris asked. Emma hesitated. "I'm not very patient. I'm not very good with my hands." Doris smiled. "That's why you should learn. Knitting isn't about being good. It's about being present. It's about slowing down. It's about letting your hands remember what your mind forgets. That you don't have to rush. That you don't have to be perfect. That you can just make something. Slowly, carefully, with love." Emma sat beside her. Doris showed her how to hold the needles, how to cast on, how to make the first stitch. Emma's hands were clumsy. The wool tangled. The needles slipped. She frustrated herself. She wanted to quit. But Doris didn't rush her. She didn't correct her sharply. She just guided her gently. "Breathe," she said. "Your hands are tense. Relax your shoulders. Drop your jaw. Let the wool flow. Don't fight it. Work with it." Emma tried again. She breathed. She relaxed. She let the wool move. The stitch formed. Small. Imperfect. But real. Hers. She knitted for 20 minutes. Then she stopped. Her hands ached. Her mind was quiet. She had made 6 rows. They were uneven. They were loose. but they were hers. She looked at them. She felt a strange sense of pride. Not because they were perfect, but because they existed. Because she had made them. Because she had slowed down enough to create something. Doris nodded. Good. You're learning. Not just knitting. Learning to rest. Learning to trust your hands. Learning to be okay with imperfection. That's the real lesson. Emma smiled. She put the knitting aside. She didn't need to finish it today. She didn't need to rush it. She would pick it up tomorrow. Or the next day. Or when she felt like it. There was no deadline, no pressure. Just the wool, just the needles, just the quiet rhythm of making. They drank tea. They watched the snow fall. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The silence was comfortable. The presence was enough. Tom stopped by a few days later. He came to check the chimney. To make sure it was drawing properly. To make sure the smoke was escaping safely. He climbed onto the roof. He cleared the snow. He checked the flue. He came back down. His cheeks were red. His hands were cold. Emma invited him inside. She made him tea. She offered him a slice of bread with butter. He accepted gratefully. They sat by the fire. The wood crackled. The warmth spread through the room. Tom sipped his tea. He looked out the window. He smiled. Beautiful day, he said. Quiet day. Yes, Emma agreed. It feels like the whole village is sleeping. Tom nodded. It is, and that's good. Winter is for sleeping, for resting, for storing energy. Spring will come, summer will come, the work will return. But for now, we rest. He was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke again. His voice was soft, reflective. I remember a winter years ago, before you came, before Doris's husband passed, before Mrs. Patterson lost her mobility. The village was snowed in for a week. The roads were blocked. The phone lines were down. The power went out on the third day. Emma listened. She didn't interrupt. She just let the story unfold. At first, people panicked, Tom continued. They worried about food, about warmth, about being cut off. But then, something shifted. We realized we had enough. We had bread. We had soup. We had firewood. We had each other. We knocked on doors. We shared what we had. We brought meals to the elderly. We checked on the young families. We gathered at the pub. We lit candles. We told stories. We played cards. We sang songs. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have internet. We didn't have phones. But we had warmth. We had food. We had community. And we realized we didn't need much to be happy. We just needed to be together. He took another sip of tea. He looked at the fire. After that winter, things changed. Not dramatically. Not overnight. But slowly. People stopped rushing so much. They started talking more. They started sharing more. They started resting more. They realized that productivity isn't everything. That stillness has value. That connection matters more than efficiency. That winter teaches us how to be human. Not human machines, but human beings. Emma felt the words settle in her chest. They resonated. They felt true. They felt like wisdom passed down through experience, through hardship, through survival, through community. Do you think we've forgotten that? Emma asked softly. In the city? In the modern world? Tom shrugged. Some have, some haven't. The world moves fast. It demands speed. It demands output. It demands constant connection. But here, in Willowbrook, we remember. We remember how to slow down. We remember how to rest. We remember how to be still. And that's why we survive. Not just the winter, but life itself. Emma nodded. She looked at her knitting basket. She looked at her journal. She looked at the fire. She looked at Tom. She felt grateful. Not just for his words, but for his presence. For his patience. For his quiet strength. For the village he represented. For the rhythm he embodied. Thank you for telling me that, she said. Thank you for listening, Tom replied, and for staying. for choosing this life, for helping us remember. He finished his tea. He stood up. He put on his coat. He stepped outside. The snow crunched under his boots. He waved. She waved back. The door closed. The warmth remained. The story lingered. The lesson settled. Emma sat by the fire. She didn't move for a long time. She just breathed. She just watched the flames. She just let the quiet fill her. She didn't need to do anything. She didn't need to fix anything. She didn't need to become anything. She was enough, just as she was, just as she was. Mrs. Patterson invited her over on a Thursday afternoon. Emma walked through the snow. The path was clear. Jim had shoveled it earlier. The village looked peaceful. The cottages were white. The roofs were heavy. The trees were bare. The sky was pale. Everything was still. Everything was calm. Everything was resting. Mrs. Patterson's house was warm. It smelled of lavender and old paper. It was filled with photographs, with books, with clocks, with memories. She sat in a large armchair by the window. She wore a thick cardigan. She held a cup of tea. She smiled when Emma entered. "Come in, dear. Sit. Warm yourself." Emma sat on a small sofa. She took off her boots. She wrapped her hands around the tea Mrs. Patterson offered. It was hot. It was sweet. It was comforting. "I've been watching you," Mrs. Patterson said gently. "You've changed. Not in a loud way, but in a quiet way. You move slower. You breathe deeper. You look lighter." Emma smiled. "I feel lighter. I'm learning to rest, to slow down, to stop rushing." Mrs. Patterson nodded. "Good. You're learning what took me 80 years to understand. That rest isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That stillness isn't emptiness, it's fullness. That peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of calm." She took a slow sip of tea. She looked out the window. "When I was young, winters were longer. Snow came earlier. Snow stayed later. People didn't travel. They stayed home. They waited. They listened. They learned patience. They learned to find joy in small things. A warm fire, a good book, a shared meal, a quiet conversation, a snowfall, a sunrise, a starry night. We didn't have much, but we had enough, and we were happy." She turned to Emma. Her eyes were clear. Her voice was steady. "Now the world is different. People rush. They scroll. They consume. They compare. They worry. They forget how to wait. They forget how to listen. They forget how to be still. But here, in this village, we remember. We keep the old ways alive. Not because they're better, but because they're true. Because they remind us what matters. Connection, presence, peace, love." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Not sad tears, but grateful tears. Tears of recognition. Tears of belonging. Tears of understanding. "I want to remember too," she whispered. "You already are," Mrs. Patterson said. "Every time you sit by the fire. Every time you watch the snow. Every time you drink tea without rushing. Every time you listen without interrupting. Every time you rest without guilt. You're remembering. You're practicing. You're living it." They sat in silence for a while. The clocks ticked. The fire crackled. The snow fell. The light faded. The afternoon turned to evening. The evening turned to night. Mrs. Patterson didn't ask Emma to leave. Emma didn't feel the need to go. They just sat. They just were. They just existed together. In the quiet. In the warmth. In the peace. Finally, Mrs. Patterson spoke. "Stay as long as you like, dear. The night is long. The house is warm. You're welcome here, always." Emma nodded. "Thank you, I will." She stayed until the fire burned low, until the tea grew cold, until the snow stopped falling, until the stars appeared, until the village slept, until she felt completely at peace. Then she walked home, slowly, carefully, present. The snow crunched under her boots. The air was crisp. The sky was clear. The world was still. She didn't rush. She didn't worry. She didn't think about tomorrow. She just walked, just breathed, just felt the quiet, just trusted the path. Jim's pub became a gathering place on cold evenings. Not loud, not crowded, but warm, but steady, but welcoming. People came after dinner. They brought instruments. They brought stories. They brought warmth. They sat by the fire. They drank tea. They shared biscuits. They listened. They spoke. They laughed softly. They remembered. They connected. Emma went often. She didn't play an instrument. She didn't tell stories. She just listened. She sat in a corner. She wrapped her hands around a mug. She watched the flames. She watched the faces. She watched the community breathe together. One evening, an old man played a fiddle. The tune was slow, mournful, beautiful. It sounded like wind through trees, like snow on roofs, like time passing gently. No one spoke, no one moved, everyone just listened, everyone just felt, everyone just remembered. Another evening, a woman read a poem about winter, about rest, about returning to the earth, about trusting the dark, about knowing the light will come again. Her voice was soft, clear, steady. The words hung in the air. They settled in the room. They stayed in the heart. Emma didn't analyze. She didn't critique. She just absorbed. She let the music wash over her. She let the words sink in. She let the community hold her. She didn't need to contribute. She just needed to be there, to witness, to receive, to rest. She realized something then, something deep, something true. Peace isn't the absence of activity. Peace is the presence of attention. It's not about doing nothing. It's about being fully here while doing whatever you're doing, whether it's knitting, whether it's cooking, whether it's walking, whether it's listening, whether it's sitting by the fire, whether it's watching snow fall. Peace is noticing. Peace is feeling. Peace is allowing. Peace is trusting that this moment is enough, that you are enough, that rest is enough. She stopped measuring her days by productivity. She started measuring them by presence, by moments of quiet joy, by feelings of calm, by sensations of warmth, by connections with others, by conversations with herself, by trust in the cycle, by faith in the process, by love for the simple things. She lit a candle each evening, not for light, but for ritual, for reminder, for reverence. She watched the flame dance. She watched it flicker. She watched it burn steadily. She thought about how fire needs air, needs fuel, needs care, just like she did, just like the village did, just like life did. She wrote one thing she was grateful for each day, not long lists, not forced positivity, just one thing. True thing, simple thing. The smell of bread, the sound of snow, the warmth of tea, the smile of a neighbor, the quiet of the house, the strength of my hands, the peace in my chest. Small words, big meaning, enough truth. She walked to the post office every few days, not to hurry, not to rush, but to move, to breathe, to notice. She saw footprints in the snow, different sizes, different directions, different stories. She imagined the people who made them. The mother walking to school, the farmer checking fields, the child building a snowman, the elder visiting a friend, the newcomer finding their way. All of them, all connected, all part of the same quiet winter rhythm. She baked bread just for the smell, just for the warmth, just for the ritual. She kneaded the dough slowly. She felt it rise. She watched it bake. She tore it apart with her hands. She tasted it fresh. She didn't need butter. She didn't need jam. She just needed the bread. The warmth. The presence. The simplicity. She stopped checking her phone, not out of discipline, out of choice, out of recognition. The phone demanded attention. It demanded urgency. It demanded comparison. It demanded noise. She didn't need any of that. She needed quiet. She needed stillness. She needed presence. She needed peace. She chose it. Every day, every moment, every breath. One evening, the wind died completely. The snow stopped falling. The clouds parted. The sky cleared. The stars appeared. Not a few, not a handful, but thousands, millions. A blanket of light, a tapestry of silver, a map of the universe. Emma stepped outside. She didn't wear a coat, she just wore her cardigan. She just stood on the path. She just looked up. The air was cold, but she didn't feel it. She felt warmth, not from outside, but from inside, from her chest, from her heart, from her soul. The village was asleep. The cottages were dark. The chimneys were quiet. The streets were still. The world was resting. And she was resting with it. She felt completely at peace. Not because everything was perfect, not because nothing was wrong, not because she had figured it all out, but because she was here, because she was present, because she was breathing, because she was alive, because she was part of it all. The snow, the stars, the village, the garden, the past, the future, the cycle, the rhythm, the life. She realized she was no longer running. From London, from stress, from anxiety, from expectation, from perfection, from herself. She was standing still. And in the stillness, she found everything she had been searching for. Peace, presence, connection, belonging, love, rest, trust, faith, home. She whispered to the night, "Thank you, not for the snow, not for the stars, not for the quiet, but for the lesson, for the stillness, for the presence, for the peace, for the belonging, for the cycle, for the life, for the rest." She stayed outside for a long time, just looking up, just breathing, just being, just existing, just trusting, just loving, just resting. Finally, she went inside. She locked the door. She turned off the lights. She climbed the stairs. She slipped under the blankets. She closed her eyes. And as she drifted off to sleep, she knew that spring would come, that the snow would melt, that the buds would form, that the garden would wake, that the days would lengthen, that the light would return, that the cycle would continue, that life would move forward. But she wasn't afraid. She wasn't anxious. She wasn't rushing. She was ready. She was resting. She was present. She was peace. She breathed slowly. In, out, in, out. Steady, calm, natural. The house was quiet. The village was still. The world was sleeping. And she was sleeping with it. Rest well, dear listener. You are safe. You are held. You are enough. Just as you are. Just as you are.